Run and ask Bill somebody what the rates are. Bill, what's the fee? I need subscription rates. I just want to know. I know you So what do we do?
And have you been
Because we decided, because sometimes last elections, it hasn't happened here, certain candidates will be ranked from all over the county, have to stand in line, pay.
Well, that's obviously not the case.
Well, that's what we decided, Bill, like, reset that time.
This is important motion. Somebody really wanted to get
We want to follow
I thought that that's why we're trying to make sure that they want to
I don't get it.
Sorry, I apologize. So what's the, so you're not going to reach the
Energy advisor.
When you all come in, if you could say hi to us here first, so we can get people ballots.
I'm sorry? Rick David He's the one who's I would not put a tie on the operating camera. Trust me.
Gentlemen, people are watching you live now, so be careful what you say.
Should we sit next to each other and freak out the world?
I'm not gonna shake your hand.
You're not going to shake my hand.
No, I don't think so.
Juvenile.
It's juvenile what you're saying on the web, so I really find it really unbelievable. You think vandalism is a joke? It's not.
No, I think what the city council is doing is a joke.
Yeah, I'm so tall.
Use the code here.
Well, I guess it's that row. Maybe we should move the row over.
What's
She's gonna get back.
They should have gone, I should have asked them, is there any questions? They should have asked.
Yes.
You could have got it.
That's okay. I was okay with a bottle of wine and food. We're all here. Yeah, that's my part.
How are you? Okay. And you know it?
Really great guys that can do it.
So Bill, the whole time I thought they were saying.
Oh, yeah, it's really great. But other than that, oh, yeah. I mean, I've already had it on here. Oh, because I understood for like, oh, we just understood that. It's a lot of things going on. Yeah. Elections coming I don't anticipate so now, common sense It just seems well if you're trying to, we did on we're going to be spending but I'm not just thrilled with the deadline. Got our last I mean, it's like I would definitely not every time I call very and I remember so I think it's 15 month process pair up and move into work you know I mean you just have to ask
Come back and
how are you? It's good.
little truck.
You know, we had a big operation in Alaska, which they just sold. They still have some of
Which buddy? Your buddy? Leland, the other one. Leland over.
He took up the whole state. Okay,
But it's the one thing it's really, and you know, well, maybe we can get, see him over here. Like in the round, where he's talking about. And he's such a nice guy. He writes most of his main articles. So, Helen and Paul and I were having lunch today and talking something, and he said, so we were chatting. Oh, it was cool. No. Yeah, I just don't talk too fast. Just 5 minutes is
Because I know it's not yours.
Everybody here. Have you guys read? No, I don't think so. This is David.
That's Scott. Good luck for you with
Good evening. First of all, that we here on the Endorsement Committee, that's Harvey Rarbach, Rick Loman, and myself, want to welcome you to this special meeting of the Coastside Democrats. We're here to celebrate the fact that we are Democrats, and our purpose tonight is to fulfill our obligations toward Democrats running for public office. And we're also here to support the democratic principles of honest and transparent government and elections, equal and inclusive opportunity and justice for all Americans, government benefiting all citizens, not just the wealthy, full respect for our natural environment and international treaties, public health and education, women's rights and the welfare of seniors, and outreach to youth and all economic or ethnic communities. Tonight, we're here to endorse Democrat candidates that are appearing before us tonight that will be sharing their vision, illustrate their accomplishments, and seek our endorsements. We will also be hearing from speakers on the measures that are important to us living here on the coast side. Whether you're a member of the club and are voting tonight or members of the Coastside community, you can expect to leave here with a better understanding of the candidates for office and the measures that will appear on the ballot. The format tonight for the candidates is to have each one speak for 3 minutes. We will then ask them both 3 identical questions from the audience. Then we will have 1 minute per question with their answer. For the measures, the spokesman advocating for the measure will speak for 5 minutes, and then will be followed by 5 minutes by the speaker in opposition to the measure. We will then ask both 3 identical questions from the audience. They will then have 1 minute per question with their answer, and then followed by a 1 minute rebuttal for the pros and cons on the measure. After we hear from all parties, we will vote. Rick Loman will talk about the ballot in just a couple of moments and how the vote will be counted. April Vargas has agreed to act as the timekeeper.
Do we have the timer?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, April has agreed to be the timekeeper, and she will ensure that all the candidates are given their full time to speak and will inform them when they must stop. She will give them April, you'll give them a 1 minute warning beforehand.
Yes, she will.
You'll give them a 1 minute warning beforehand, right?
Oh, you're gonna get lots of warnings, don't worry. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop.
Okay, and so as not to be disruptive, she'll do this by holding up the cards, and so that you'll still be able to continue speaking until the time is up. And we'd like to thank April for doing that. Also, that if you look in the back of the room is Deborah Lardy, and Deborah will be, if you have a question for any of the candidates or for any of the measures, raise your hand, get Deborah's attention. She'll give you a card to write it on, and then she will also come back and pick it up. So we're using a format that's very similar to what's used by the Commonwealth Club when they line up speakers. If there are more than 3 questions for any measure or for any candidate, that Deborah will pick out the ones that she thinks are the best, and those will be the ones that will be asked. At this time, that I would like to turn things over to Rick, who's going to talk about the ballot itself and how it will be counted.
I lost my voice this morning, so I'm going to talk real fast. We had a little confusion last election about what a no vote meant or not voting meant, so we tried to clarify that this year. For each of the people or each of the measures, there's 3 different vote options. There's first option is yes. That means you absolutely love this person, love that measure, and you want to endorse it. There's a no vote, which means no, I don't like that person. I don't want to support that measure. I don't want to endorse it. Then we've added a no vote option. This is for people who either are undecided, maybe they don't care that much about that. And what that means is that vote will not be counted in the totals. So the totals on which we will determine the 60% endorsement margin will be the sum of the yeses and the nos for each candidate. So each total might be a little different depending on how people vote. If you don't mark anything, we'll count that as a no vote. No vote means you don't count me. So we'll add up all the yeses, we'll add up all the nos, make a total, and we'll divide the yeses by that total. And if that's 60% or greater, that means our club will be endorsing that candidate or measure. If you have any questions,
Do all people vote on all items, or if it's not being voted on in the district you live in, do you not vote?
The club is voting as a club. So even if you don't live in, I guess the only example might be, like Half Moon Day. If you live in El Granada, yes, you can vote because the club is endorsing. Okay. Same thing for the parks issue. If you live in Half Moon Bay, you can be voting.
Can we vote for, even if they're not here? There was some discussion we couldn't vote unless the person is here. Is that true?
Do you have an example?
Is Jackie here?
Oh, we're gonna, we have a statement from Jackie.
No.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. We're flexible on changing the flag. Yes, you can vote for it.
But there's no proxy voting allowed.
Proxy voting.
Yeah, you can't vote on behalf of somebody else.
No. You came in, if you remember, you were given a ballot, and these are the ballots we're going to count. So.
Okay, so the first person that we'll ask to speak to us tonight is Rich Gordon. He's the State Assembly member from the 24th District. And Rich, welcome. And if April's all ready, you have 3 minutes to tell us all about yourself.
Good evening, and it's my pleasure to be here. I had the privilege of representing the coast for 13 years on the Board of Supervisors, and for the last 2 terms, I have been in the California State Assembly. When I went to the Assembly, said that there were 3 things that I really wanted to work on. One was government reform, accountability, transparency. I'm pleased to report that the only piece of legislation that will be on the governor's desk this year dealing with transparency in our politics, dealing with the $11 million that was secretly sent to this state from a nonprofit in Arizona, is the bill that I authored that hopefully the governor will sign next week. I also wanted to work on the environment, and I have been able to carry legislation dealing with the reform of our recycling program. I have been working as chair of a select committee on sea level rise, and I have also carried legislation which allowed the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District to refinance their loans, saving them $6 million a year. And finally, I wanted to work on education, and I'm proud to have been one of those who strongly supported last year the proposal for the local control funding formula. It does two things for our schools. One, it guarantees that there is far more local control and decision making, less authority from Sacramento, but it also targets school funding to those children and school districts most in need. And I think that's critical and important. So I'm pleased to have been able to do that, and I seek re-election to a third and final term in the State Assembly to continue that work and to kind of complete some of the things that I have been working on. Particularly, I want to complete some work on sea level rise. It's pretty critical for all of us. So I am here tonight to ask for your endorsement and your support. I have been pleased and proud to have the support of this club in the past and of this community in the past. I am endorsed by the Democratic Party and endorsed by Congresswoman Spear, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, and my friend Supervisor Don Horsley. And I want to conclude with just a very personal note. I am pleased to be here tonight with my husband, Dr. Denny McShane, and we are a couple that was privileged enough to be able to get married under California law during a very short window 6 years ago, and we got married at the Oceana Hotel here on the coast. And so I'm pleased that he was able to join me tonight. So I thank you very much, and I respectfully ask for your support and endorsement again. So April, those 10 seconds, can I give them to somebody else?
This isn't Sacramento Red.
Thank God.
Okay, so this is 1 minute.
Okay, so that you have nobody else, so these are the questions for you. Are you for or against high-speed rail?
I support high-speed rail for California's future. With population growth that we're going to have, we cannot move people north and south in this state by building more freeways. We don't have additional runway capacity. So long-term, we need high-speed rail. However, we're not going to have that for a while, and particularly not in this region. Funding just isn't available. It's not something we can immediately afford, but it is something we should be planning and preparing for, and it should be part of our long-term future. I am pleased that 2 years ago, I was able to be supported of using part of the high-speed rail money for what I think is a very important first step, and that's electrifying our Caltrain on the Peninsula Corridor. We secured that funding. That project is moving forward, but high-speed rail will be decades away.
Very good. Okay, Assembly Member Gordon, this is the next one. Are you planning to support the new SB 1381, the California GMO labeling bill?
So there is a bill in the state Senate requiring GMO labeling on foods. I support the concept of the bill. I always wait and pause before saying whether I'm going to vote on it, yes or no, because it's in the Senate. About 90% of the time, legislation that starts in the Senate is very different by the time it finally gets to me in the assembly. So I support the concept. I'll be looking at the bill very closely, but I can't say yes or no tonight on that bill because I don't know what it's going to look like in the end. But I do think that we need to have this kind of labeling and make sure that folks know where their food comes from, what they're consuming, and what chemicals are in the food that we are eating.
Very good. Okay.
We have two more coming. You want just
Okay.
Slowly but surely.
Fortunately, these are similar. So, okay, the California Coastal Commission needs funds to be able to defend their decisions. Will you support that?
Yes, actually, I sit on the Budget Subcommittee in the State Assembly for Natural Resources and Transportation. And last year was the initiator of an effort to increase funding to the Coastal Commission for permit and enforcement activity. And unfortunately, the governor has not included that in his budget. We got it in there last year, he signed it. He's not included in his budget this year, so I will again be leading the charge to get that money back in the state budget. We can afford it, and it's important to do for the coast. Great new staff have been hired at the commission to start this work. We need to make sure those folks stay in place.
Very good. Okay, so I'd like to, first of all, thank you very much, Rich.
Let me say thank you, and I know that there may be other questions you didn't get to ask. I'm happy to come back to the club at a future time when we're not in this kind of tight time frame that you are tonight, and spend more time and have a greater discussion. Happy to do that. And I'm going to take my husband to dinner.
I was going to say the other one is okay, also that we do have, it's something that I actually should have brought up a little bit earlier, but we do have, we did not have time to go over the Superior Court judge candidates. So in the back, I believe we have several candidates, and feel free to, I believe in the back, if you'll introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jeff Hayden. I'm running for Superior Court here in San Mateo County. I'm a lifelong resident here. I'd love the chance to talk with any of you that would like to take a couple moments to step outside of your meeting so we don't disrupt, and tell you what I'm about and why I'm running.
Have I missed anybody else? Okay, very good. The next person is our current District 3 Supervisor for San Mateo County, Don Horsley. And Don, if you'd like to come up and...
We start? Okay. I think probably most of you know me. I've been supervisor for the last 3+ years. You know, actually, I was the sheriff for a long period of time, so you know that as well. And a lot of the things that Rich Gordon started, I actually have continued with. So, for example, like you know, all of our one of the priorities for this coastal community is the parallel trail, and so I'm working on the parallel trail. I'm working on a traffic management plan, congestion management plan, Plan Princeton, all for the coastside. Now, the fortunate thing is that one of the things that I said I was going to do, and I really pushed when I got on the board, was to stabilize our county's finances. So we did it by two things. First of all, we had a couple of taxes. One was a rental car tax at the airport that brings in somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10 million, and the other was a 0.5-cent sales tax that does a lot of the things that the county really should be doing with mental health, health services, children's services. And it also gives us the opportunity to do things that I would really want to do. So with all of our plans for Princeton, for the Highway 1, which you all know is a mess in terms of traffic, but all of those things, the traffic management, the parallel trail, we now have the funds for the first time to be able to actually get all those plans to the point where we are ready to do construction. Then the next part of the challenge would be for me to get the money to do the construction. So that's one of the reasons I want to stay on the Board of Supervisors, so that I can finish those projects to actually see them. You know, one thing the other day we did groundbreaking, or ribbon cutting that is, for the Devil's Slide Park. I worked on that with Rich for I think it was like 10 years on the tunnel itself, and then the park. The park is really a remarkable addition to our county park system. That also, by the way, is funded by Measure A, it's about $2 million. The other one of my priorities is mental health. We have a facility in Cordilleras. It used to be a tuberculosis hospital. It needs to be replaced. So I've got the county to set aside $50 million to build a new facility for people who are mentally ill. The facility should really be dramatically different than a 1930, 1920 style tuberculosis hospital that's essentially a locked facility. It's really inappropriate for people who really need different kinds of environment to be able to get better, to be able to go back into the community. So, last, 30 seconds left, okay. Well, I'd be glad to answer other questions for you, whatever you have, I do these things, Donuts with Dawn. I did that because I was in law enforcement. Everybody likes to laugh and talk for donuts and stuff. But I try to make myself as available as possible, work with the MCC, work with community groups, listen to what people have to say. I really focus a lot on what the community wants. I think I stopped it. Questions?
Okay, so no questions?
No questions. Come on.
Wait, we have to do written.
Wait.
Oh, written.
While he's standing here.
Okay, so in that case, we will take one from the audience. April, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so.
I don't start till after you read it, though. Get your phone.
That's fair.
Okay, so we have the first one, Don? Ready, April?
Yes,
What are the plans for erosion along Highway 1?
We actually are working with the Coastal Commission, Caltrans, the city of Half Moon Bay, and of course, obviously the county and the Department of Public Works. And we know that on Surfers Beach and some of our beaches are really, well, first, Plan Princeton is supposed to deal with the erosion, but the most serious one really is around the Surfers Beach. And we do have a plan, and it really calls for revetment to be able to reestablish the trail and also protect that beach. In the long run, we really need to get the Army Corps of Engineers to do something about the sand that is, has been basically trapped in the harbor. They have something in the neighborhood about 200,000 cubic yards of sand. You could take about 140,000 cubic yards, dump it on Surfers Beach, which would improve the surfing, improve the beach. Probably would only last about 6 years, but the good thing about it is it all be shifted south, so it would replenish sand on all of our beaches south. So we are working with, collaboratively to
Okay.
I'm very good when somebody tells me to stop.
That was question one, wasn't it? Yes. Okay, so are you ready for the second one, Don?
I am.
Okay. How can the county help improve Highway 92 congestion? And I'm just going to add one other one here on my own, Highway 1 congestion.
Well, let me talk about Highway 1. We are doing a traffic management plan. Our local coastal plan requires, before we can do any additions or any changes, we have to have a traffic management plan. So we just recently, I got essentially an appropriation of about $600,000. We are doing a traffic management plan. Now, I don't know what it's going to say, but that is, and it's really difficult. We're not going to expand the roadway, so it's going to probably require other kinds of options that I really, there might be park and rides, there might be more public transportation, there's a whole variety of things, but I can't really prejudge it. On 92, frankly, there's probably not much we can do. It's a narrow road, we're not going to change that, we're not going to expand that. And I know where it gets clogged up, especially around pumpkin time, with all the people crossing the road. It's really a tough problem. I don't really know how to deal with that. But I'll think about it.
Very good. Okay, one last one, Don. What are your goals for Plan Princeton?
That's an interesting thing. Plan Princeton, when we first started looking at, what I really, all of the lots are, or so many of the lots were really nothing more than junkyards. There was a pretty big fire in one of the lots sometime back where there was a lot of a toxic substance that were stored really inappropriately in a lot. So we really started focusing on getting rid of the abandoned cars, dealing with the boats, the decaying boats that are about to fall over, the people living in convict boxes. In fact, there was one case where a guy's, I guess, girlfriend was living in one of these storage convict boxes, and when he would go off to work, he'd lock her in that box. What would happen if there was a fire in that? So what we try to do, not necessarily evict them, but try to find them, well, we do have to get them out, but to get them into supportive housing. You can't live in a convict box. There's no water, no sanitation. So really, in terms of what I want, it really is going to be the community's vision. It's got to be the broader community as well as... Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
I think I should take care of it. First of all,
I appreciate it. Have your endorsement. So, and I am a lifelong Democrat. I was born a Democrat.
very good. Thank you, Supervisor Horsley. Okay, the next thing up on the agenda is the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District Resolution for a Bond Measure, which is also known as Measure AA, correct? And to introduce us to this, Rick Loman.
We're moving on to the measures. I'll do a very short intro because I still can't talk. This is for the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. It is kind of an interesting district because most districts are just within the county. They're one of the districts which goes across multiple counties. They're mainly in Santa Clara, but years ago, the local population here on the coast voted to be annexed a major portion of San Mateo County into Mid-Pan also. So we are part of them now, and they are putting a bond measure on the ballot to increase their revenues. And tonight we have Darren Klein, who's part of the campaign for this measure. I'll let him do the real talking.
Thanks, Rick. Ready? Hi. What you got? Hi, I'm Darren Klein. I am the campaign manager for Yes for Open Space, and that is for the Mid-Penn District to be able to expand their holdings and to open up their holdings to new trails. Our saying is new trails, old trees. What Mid-Penn has really been known for is collecting a lot of property, making sure we have open space, beautiful views that you have here. They don't have a lot open up to hiking, biking. That is starting to change. They're looking for ways that people can use the property recreationally while at the same time being able to reserve more open space for the future. You know, when it's gone, it's gone. And that's what we've seen. You cannot go and take a gas station and turn it back into open space. We are hoping with this bond measure, which will raise $300 million over 30 years, we'll be able to tackle, there are 54 projects that have been part of the vision plan that they've been working on for the last 2 years. We hope to tackle 25 of the first priority projects and hopefully more than that along with it. The focus, like I said, being on hiking, biking trails, opening up that stuff, being able to reserve more properties, improving those things. And I have a map here that does have the top 25 priorities that you can look at your leisure. We also have interactive computer maps on the web, and I will leave several of them on the back tables here so you can peruse them at your leisure. We are at a critical point right now when it comes to the quality of our air, the quality of our water, the quality of everything around us, and it's been proven time and time again that open space is one of those ways to help with that. We feel that the investment taken right now is going to be the best way to be able to preserve this for the future. This is a long-term thought process for everybody. And we believe at this campaign that this is the time to do it. So what we have done is we are going on the June 3rd election. We are going to ask for it is a 67% is what we need to pass. It is a super majority because it is a bond measure. The bond measure will, the average, let's see, for every 100,000 in assessed value, it would add roughly $3 for all of those. A house in this area, it would be roughly $20 a year. That is, and in return, they are going to take their 60,000 acres in holding, grow that greatly. Right now, they have been able to allow access to 50% of Mid-Penn properties. They want to increase that access for hiking, biking, and recreation. They've been working really well with the Peninsula Open Space Trust to be able to open up other grounds as well. One of the big things that we've had also as a focus, and a lot of people have been excited about this, is saving the redwoods, the redwood trees. Sempervirens Fund has become a big investor in this campaign as they are trying to do their best to save the redwoods throughout this area. The Save the Redwoods League was one of the first folks to endorse us. Post is also on that. And so there are a lot of unique natural characteristics that we have here that this is pretty much the only way to save it. I think that Mid-Penn is a great, unique thing that you don't see anywhere else in the country. You guys have 60,000 acres, most beautiful place in the world. It is. And you go to other parts of the country and you will never have this. And we see now that there are ways professionally that Mid-Penn has been able to open up these areas, make this a better place for everyone to enjoy the recreation, and at the same time, make sure that we have this space available for my children, your children, grandchildren, so on and so forth. So with that being said, I will wrap up here because I think kind of the measure speaks for itself, and it's more important to get into your questions and see if you feel that you could be a part of this. Thank you.
Before we do the questions, we didn't have an official registered opponent. We decided at our endorsement meeting that if somebody from the audience would like to feel strongly in opposition to this, we would take a volunteer. Otherwise, we would move this directly to the questions. I see none, so we'll just go straight to we'll go straight to the questions.
That's what you were saying, right?
You have 1 minute for your answer for each question.
The first question is, why vote for the tax increase rather than give more money to Post?
Oh, why vote instead of give more money to Post? Okay. No, that is, I've never gotten that question before. Post is a great facilitator for protecting property. Post will never be able to be big enough. We need our entire community acting together. The best way to have our entire community act together, if it is something that they are all a part of, that's what makes Mid-Penn different. When I was talking earlier about things across the country, we don't, in other places, we do not have what you have here. Mid-Penn is a great repository. It is a governmental organization that can take this property and protect it forever. That is what they do. They will manage this property. They will make sure that we cut down on, we have problems with fires in this area, water quality, everything. We have all of these stats that prove that if we can manage this open space well, the best way to do it is in an organization that's part of us, and that's Mid-Penn.
The second question, if I can read it, is, does the bond state the proportions of funds to acquisitions and access?
Okay, so the bond itself does not say, it does not say it in the ballot measure, okay? What it does, what we have committed to with the top 25 priority projects is that roughly 55% of the money goes to open space, buying property, protecting property. 45% is about 170 to a 130 million split, somewhere in there, but it changes a little bit. So that means 45% is going to opening trails, access of all levels, we will be spending that money to make sure that the trails, erosion, and everything else that you need to have good quality trails that last forever, multi-generational. So that's where the bond split is. As you buy property and work with property, it's hard to commit to a hard and fast 50-50 rule. But we know that with the 55-45 split, we can do what we commit to in this pamphlet, which I just put upside down.
Okay, only 2 questions, so if there's a question from the audience, who will take it?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
On a bond, you're just really taxing property owners, not the general public, right? It
Yes.
goes on the parcel.
It goes on the, yes, it goes on the
tax
property
bill.
tax bill.
And it looks like on this map that there's really very little that's going to be on the coast side, or currently is on the coast side, and but you're going to tax all the property owners over here, correct?
Well, I know that where the stars are that are the main access points for the projects.
13 is about the only one along the coast.
Okay, there are a breakdown of 4 that we know that are in this area, and I apologize for not having that pointed out on something like this, being with the Coastside Democrats. There are the trails that we're trying to build and the access between 13, 14, 15, 16, the one in Prisma Creek and the redwoods there that we're saving. There are a lot of different projects, and one of the important things there are a lot of projects that we're trying to do, and there are things that we will be doing in this area. One of the things I do want to point out with Mid-Penn is they partner with county parks, they partner with Post. I need to stop. But the partnerships of those two is a huge benefit here as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Okay, the next measure up is called the Cabrillo Unified School District Resolution for a Parcel Tax Measure, which is also known as Measure B. That speaking in support of that will be Len Erickson. And at the present time, we do not have anyone speaking in opposition to it, so if anyone cares to speak in opposition to it, they should let us know within the next 5 minutes.
Or less.
Okay. Len?
Thank you. Thank you, Coastside Democrats. I'm happy to be here to speak on behalf of Measure B. I think as you know from the measure itself, this is a parcel tax on property in the coast. It's property parcel tax of $150 per parcel. This is a continuation of a parcel tax that was voted by over a 70% margin by the public, called Measure E, and this is basically that same parcel tax continued. The process to put that parcel tax in place was very thorough. It's a very difficult tax to sort through in that there were far more demands on the tax, or at least far more demands on needed money than could be covered by that parcel tax. The district ran an extensive process, put that in place, and I think most commendably, you can find considerable detailed information about the Measure E parcel tax and what has happened to it over the past several years on the website of the school. Measure B, which is on the ballot now, is a continuation, as I said, and it is not changing anything in particular. With regard to the funding of education, some of you, while we're in the subject of, or in the area of alphabet letters, Measure S was passed in the last major election. That was a bond measure, and I think there are some questions with regard to, it's quite a large bond measure, doing a number of things for the schools, and what's, by this point you could get some level of exhaustion about these. I want to point out that Measure S, the bond measure, is supporting basically capital improvements for the schools, and if you look at all of our schools, you can see, especially in the elementary schools, they're much needed. The two are quite separate. For myself, my son is long past school age by the time I moved here, but I can give you a very specific example of how those two work together. I think if you follow the news, you know that we now have underway adoption of Common Core standards in the schools with major technology improvements and additions required to support those. We had the good fortune of passing Measure S to be able to afford that technology in our schools. but it doesn't provide for the support of those schools, for the support of that technology. So consequently, you have, on the other hand, Measure E and now Measure B that will keep that technology support in place, and without it, you'd have technology without support, and you know in this age that's not a good combination to have. There are many other very important people-oriented parts of Measure B that will be supported. I will not attempt to go through them for you. Also, you might ask, well, why do we need this support? As things improve, Supervisor Gordon spoke to local control of funding, and I think it's fair to say that that may improve in the future, but as we look at the situation now, we're still facing deficits in our budget without this measure in place. So I believe those are the major reasons to emphasize about it. I think that that's all I wanted to put in front of you, but I hope that the one example I gave you in terms of the technology area helps you understand the relation between the large bond measure passed and this parcel tax measure. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so.
I speak against it.
You,
I thought it was going to cancel the whole.
okay.
Ready? Yes, you have 5 minutes.
I don't think I'll be talking for 5 minutes, but I am a local realtor. And as many of you know who are property owners, we are the source of all kinds of little nibbles of, shall we say, parcel taxes. The Cabrillo Unified School District, at least 3. They, on their last one, Measure S, it was a 40-year bond, and they never really put that out, that it could be up to a 40-year bond. And that's a lot of time to be soaking property owners for infrastructure that will probably be outdated by the end of it. The other thing is, they're talking about that it went to capital improvements originally. They just had a quick little laundry list of things they wanted to put together, like a performing arts center and solar panels and stuff like that. There's a lot of, there were no exemptions on that bond for senior citizens. Now, if Len is saying that there is going to be, just like the measure M was before and D now, I guess there will be a senior citizen exemption, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, but it still puts a lot of burden on people before that, and there's also, I believe, going to be something, another parcel tax coming up for Save the Bay to environmental thing. Debbie Ruddock might know a little more about it, but each one of these entities only looks at property owners for taxing funding their particular little projects. And actually, Len talked about budget deficits. When homeowners go into budget deficits, they make a new budget. They have to live within their means. School districts seem to always come back to the trough. So that's what I had to say, and think about it if you're a property owner.
Okay, so now we will have 3 questions for both of you. It'll be the same question. Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with you, Sid. The first question: will CUSD ever stop asking for more money?
I doubt it. I hate to say it, but I doubt it, because they always, even the city council of Half Moon Bay, where I don't live, as soon as you give them money, they start asking for more. They spend it. They think of ways to spend it. And I hate to say it, but whatever politician gets the money, is no matter what their background is, they're always going to want to spend money if they have it to spend. That seems to be the way it's been going.
Could you ask, could we please know who you are? Sorry.
Sid Young, Moss Beach.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, are you finished, Sid? Because I think you, okay. I'll repeat the question, Len. Will CUSD ever stop asking for more money?
I think in answer of it, I just want to point out that this particular measure, Measure B, is a continuation of a tax. It will not increase the tax bill of property owners at all from the current level, but it will retain that level in place for another 5 years. And I think it's against well-documented needs of the school district.
It was supposed to sunset in 3 years.
That's not correct.
I thought it's what it was.
Okay.
Is that all for that question?
Okay. Same question, Sid. Is this school district going to get any of the state money that's being distributed? If so, how much?
I'll have to defer that to Len because I haven't gone to a school board meeting since they started rolling out the Measure S proposal.
Okay.
Does he get to
Well,
answer?
Len gets
I deferred to him, at least give him a shot at it.
I'm sorry. Len, is the school district going to get any of the state money that's being distributed, and if so, how much?
I can't give you an amount, but again, in technology, which is the one area I work actively with the schools, you may know that during this last year, the state allocated $1 billion to the schools to support the technology requirements coming down, and our district shared with that money, but I cannot give you the exact number.
Okay, so the third question is, and this will be for you, Len, first. When does the current Measure E expire?
Current Measure E would expire in 2015.
Okay. Sid, I would ask you the same question.
Well, I'll go with him, but isn't that now going to overlap the other parcel tax that was supposed to sunset?
No, this is designed to come into place exactly when that goes out.
And so therefore, you never really stop soaking the homeowners for the new things that you want. Like, I guess you didn't really say in your talk what the money was going to go for.
I said it was going exactly for what Measure E was going for.
Which was, for those who don't know.
Let me read you. Preserve strong academic reading, writing, math, and science programs, retain qualified teachers, protect programs to keep struggling students on the right track, maintain and support classroom technology, and keep all of the school district schools open.
And not fix leaky roofs this time.
That's where the parcel tax has their bond measure has been.
Okay, very good. Is everybody holding on? Okay, so the next one that we are going to talk about is going to be the LAFCO resolution for a measure to reorganize the Granada Sanitary District, and that is also known as Measure G. Speaking in support of that will be Matthew Clark. And at the present time, we have no one in opposition to that, so. Oh, excuse me, but can't even read my own notes. Kirk Reamer will speak in opposition to it. I'm sorry.
Hi, I live in the Granada Sanitary District, and I also happen to sit on the board, but I'm here tonight as a citizen advocate to urge you to endorse and vote for Measure G. And I'd like to start with a little history. When I moved to Granada in 1972, I really liked the rural character of the area, and but I soon learned that in the early 70s there were plans being floated for a megacity here on the mid-coast of up to 200,000 people. And this, as you may imagine, got a lot of local people interested. And they went to the county and said, not a good idea, we don't like this, we like what we have, and we'd like to keep it. And that went into a process that lasted over 5 years and produced a plan for the mid-Coastside area. This was published in 1977 and endorsed, adopted, I should say, by the county supervisors in 1978. And I'd like to read you the gist of this plan for the mid-coast. The goal was, this is regarding park facilities, provide park facilities for use by local residents in each community and establish a system for financing them. Under policies, we have establish a recreation district or a special service district to create and maintain local parks. Develop mini parks and tot lots on suitable vacant parcels throughout the community which are available for acquisition. Utilize stream and drainage channels extending through urbanized areas as a basis for linear parks, recreation corridors, and trail systems. utilize school playgrounds for such active recreation as baseball, tennis, swimming, etc., and establish a community center for the area. And under the plan, community parks are indicated adjacent to the elementary schools and between the Coast Highway and the commercial center in El Granada. And finally, recreation corridors are shown paralleling creeks and water courses to protect the channels from development and to provide for trail systems connecting the beaches with open lands of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Now, this was 36 years ago. We've had none of these happen. There is one park in El Granada, Quarry Park, that too was a citizen's effort. It's now a county park, but it would never have existed without the efforts of the local citizens. As you, most of you know, the Granada Sanitary District includes Princeton, El Granada, including Clipper Ridge, Miramar, and a portion of City of Half Moon Bay from Frenchman's Creek north. And so this does not apply to the entire mid-coast, although the original plan did. A question that we have gotten often here is why there are no specific plans being put forth by GSD for parks and rec, and that's because as a sewer district, the district is not allowed to do that sort of thing. On financing, this is rather complicated, but basically GSD gets back some of the property taxes that we all pay, and those go into the operations and budget for sewer services, and a portion of that would be initially reallocated for the parks and recreation function. How much of that will be needed will be determined by the community. The current board is committed to hearing the community for what kinds of parks and recreation facilities are supported and most needed. And I would urge you to not vote for anyone who ever runs for the board who doesn't make that pledge. I can't stand here and say we're going to take X parcel and make it into a park, or we're going to produce a trail in the next 2 years at a specific location. I think this is a key point that the district will hold, as a CSD, will hold public meetings and find various ways to take the pulse of the public as to what we'd like to see happen in the Granada Sanitary District. And I'll give up my 30 seconds.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Matthew. And speaking in opposition to the LAFCO resolution for a measure to reorganize the Granada Sanitary District, known as Measure G, is Kirk Bremer. So, Kirk.
Probably I'm going to read most of this because otherwise I'm going to mess it up. I am Kirk Bremer. I am on the school board. I'm in the second term of two-term stint here. I come tonight to speak to you solely as a private citizen. I'm not speaking for the school board. I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay for over 2 decades. But because of my work on the school board and some other committees, and the school district being the largest provider of recreation facilities in the Coastside, I have a pretty good understanding of the parks in their existence and the needs on the coast. And for that reason, I wanted to talk in opposition to ballot measure G, which is to add park and recreation duties. And I urge the taxpayers of the GSD to vote against measure G. I'm opposed for 2 reasons. First, I think this is the wrong agency to choose if you want more and better parks on the coastside. The proposal is lacking in many ways. There's no clear description of what the GSD intends to do. The proposal is filled with some ideas about what the new district might or could do, but contains no specific plan. Board members say they can't explain more until there is a mandate from voters, but there isn't even a plan or description of options for Burnham Strip, which is already owned by the district. El Granada residents deserve to see clear plans and detailed budgets before a reorganization, so they know what they're committing their tax dollars to. GSD is doing a disservice to the voters by asking them to vote yes without explaining what they will actually do with the dollars. The proposal is so vague that it really leaves El Granada taxpayers wide open to unknown costs in the future. A yes vote is equivalent to signing a blank check. Making the Parks District Plan work requires partnerships, but there is no clear evidence of interest or commitment to partnerships in the GSD plan. Possible partners are mentioned, including the county, Mid-Penn, school district, city of Half Moon Bay. Importantly, there's no clear descriptions of what those partnerships might entail or of costs associated with these partnerships. GSD board members have reportedly met with potential partners, but there's no information on the GSD website about those meetings. One could rightly believe that silence indicates there is no partnering in progress. Let's not kid ourselves on the real cost of doing this. For example, just look at the $500,000 budget for the new Devil's Slide park maintenance, and it's mostly asphalt and concrete. Parks cost money. With Measure G, there's no budget for staff. Who will manage and maintain these new parks and recreational services? There's no budget for acquisition or capital improvements. For instance, the benches, picnic tables, and trails that are mentioned for the boulevard meetings. What are the estimated costs of developing and maintaining them? Importantly, there's no discussion of liability costs associated with any of the items on the list. There are better alternatives to Measure G, which is why you should vote no. The proposed expansion of the sanitary district just reinforces a piecemeal approach to unmet needs in the mid-coast. We do not need more divisions of power on the coast side. The multiple redundant agencies serve primarily as an obstacle to getting big things done, things that serve all coastsiders. Both the San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Commission and LAFCO have encouraged a regional approach to meeting these needs. Let's do it right. There's an economy of scale that we can leverage to fund the recreational facilities we want through our coast and their maintenance in perpetuity if we just think big. The county already has a better and more defined and focused vision of recreational facilities for the coast side. It's done studies, and we should help them move forward on forming a single coastside parks district, Half Moon Bay to Montara, with representation from all local areas in the region. This would be a much more preferable approach and likely be much more successful. The county completed a comprehensive forward-looking report on coastside parks several years ago. They are the agent that's clearly capable of doing this right for the entire coastside, so I urge you to vote no on Measure G. The second reason I oppose Measure G is that it's being sold as a means for local control. To me, local control must not simply be going it alone, because that's just not a feasible approach in this highly regulatory environment, if you really want to make things happen. Instead, we need to realize that we do need help. Consider viewing local control as a process of leveraging the power of the county and the state to help us get big things done here on the coast. We need their help, and they will work with us if we work with them. So let's do this. Let's make contact with county supervisors such as Supervisor Horsey and Senator Gordon, and each of us in the room that are informed and motivated should begin to work together to bring the kinds of parks and recreation facilities that we want and need throughout our coastal neighborhoods. Real people-serving parks cost real money to build and to the mandated standards and to maintain. Now is not the time to think small. Small is Measure G. Vote no on Measure G.
Okay. That also, Rick informed me that I screwed up, and in the last one that I did not have a rebuttal period of 1 minute, so that Len, you can, and Sid, if I can have you come up again and correct my mistake, or if you want to let it
I personally don't
ride.
think that would be helpful.
It's fine. Well, I didn't really hear, what was?
There was a 1 minute rebuttal that.
To the rebuttal?
So, okay. Anyway, that then this will be the 1 minute rebuttal period for Measure G. And Matthew, you have the first.
Well, I think I addressed Mr. Reimer's two main points. The Granada Sanitary District is constrained by state law from working on parks and recreation as a sanitary district. We could not direct staff to spend time or money on specific plans that we would put forward for this election. The second main one was that the district is not the agent for this change, because there are better ideas. And the better idea that always comes up is the county. And if you think that works, I invite you to spend another 36 years waiting for the county to do what they said they would do back in the 70s. So, you know.
Okay, if you hold your applause, because we also have a 1 minute to hear from Kirk Reamer on this as a rebuttal.
I disagree. I think that the bigger approach than having a small district carve out territory is a far better approach to doing it. And the key is that it costs a lot more money. It takes a lot more infrastructure to make it happen. That's why, I mean, Devil's Slide, look at that park space. It's asphalt and concrete. It's going to cost $500,000 a year. That gives you some idea of the scope of the funding that's needed to make parks happen. You can't just throw up 2x4s. It has to be built to certain standards. I don't have much more to say.
Okay, so now we go to the question and answer period. And Kurt, I'll give you the first question. A community center is needed. Could this money go towards a community center if the public wants it?
I believe it could. If a community center is serving as, say, the restrooms and other facilities for a playing field or a swimming pool, then it would happen that way. That's one way I can envision it happen. Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Matthew, the same question. A community center is needed. Could this money go towards a community center if the public wants it?
The key there is if the public wants it. And as I said, the current board is committed to soliciting as well as possible community feelings and desires and needs and willingness to pay for what they want. No one's saying we're going to get Parks and Recreation for free. The people that live in the Granada Sanitary District have to express their opinions and their willingness to pay for what they want. And if it's a community center, I think it's great.
Okay, so then the next question, and I will go back to you, Matthew, to start. Why should GSD have a special district when it is needed by all Coastside communities? Shouldn't there be a Coastside-wide special district?
I think that it could be a step toward a Coastside-wide Parks and Rec district, but there's no mechanism to do that now. So, and in fact, 36 years ago, the county said, establish a recreation district. They haven't done anything on that. Or create a special district. Well, we already have a special district that has governance, finances, and is publicly responsible. So I think that the Granada Sanitary District is the entity that is available to do this.
Okay, so the same question, Kirk, if you're ready. Why should GSD have a special district when it is needed by all Coastside communities? Shouldn't there be a Coastside-wide special district?
Yes, there should be a Coastside-wide district. I think that is the better approach. It's the way to leverage those funds from the county and state. It's about making more noise, stronger demands. Period.
You're next.
You're next. Okay, third question.
Next question.
Okay, and this one goes back, Matthew, if you're ready. April, do you think community parks will benefit the schools, provide more playland for children?
Yes, I definitely think that the parks will benefit the schools because as in the plan, the organization that does provide parks will partner with whatever our facilities are currently available, like at the elementary schools and wherever else is available, to improve them and maintain them. And the district actually went to the school board and asked for a commitment to partner together, and that would have gone into our application at the school board work plan. So I don't think there's any question that the schools will be part and parcel of the facilities and programs that the GSD would do.
Okay, and so that the same question, Kirk, do you think community parks will benefit the schools, provide more playland for children?
I don't think there will be a benefit, direct and even conceivably indirect, to the schools to having additional parkland. As much as the school parklands that exist as the school fields are there for the educational purposes of the district. They're not there as a parkland. During the school hours, they're used for instructional and athletics. So they're not there for the benefit of the public, but after school, they are there for the benefit of the public. So in that way, I don't think there's a direct benefit to be expected. They would certainly facilitate access to sites and cross-use of facilities, I'm sure, because it's a benefit to the public. We are, the district is the de facto provider of parklands.
Very good.
Next question.
That's it.
I put in a question.
No, that we had 3 questions to each one of them, and that's the format that we'll stay with. Okay, so the next one, Harvey, if you would mind.
The question of the Main Street Bridge is very confusing. It's been going on for a while now. I'm trying to give you a little bit of update on the history so that you'll have the background in case you've lived under a rock for the last couple of years. The Main Street Bridge needs work. Everyone agrees on that issue. The question is, should it be destroyed or preserved? The City Council has been considering this issue for over 3 years now. And last September, they voted that the preferred alternative was to destroy the bridge. In response to that, there has been a citizen initiative to put on the November ballot a initiative that would forbid the City Council from destroying the bridge or enlarging the bridge without approval of the citizenry. In response to that citizen initiative, the City Council, March 14th, voted to put 2 City Council initiated ballot measures, Measure E and Measure F. That's what we're going to be debating tonight. Measure E would essentially say that the City Council can continue doing what they've been doing to give them the flexibility to do it. Measure F preempts some of the language in the citizen initiative, but removes the reasons for the Preservation Act. And so we need to know whether or not we want to support Measure E, Measure F, or neither measure. But in any event, you should be aware that in November, the Citizens Initiative to preserve the bridge will be on the ballot. So
What's that number? Because it's not on this flyer.
What's that?
The preservation one and the accessibility one, which is F and which is E?
The E is the first one, the
Measure.
Safety and Accessibility Act. And F is the Bridge Preservation Act.
Okay, so speaking first on the Main Street Safety and Accessibility Act, as in favor of that is Alifan.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Alan Alifano, and I was first elected to the City Council back in 2009. The 2 measures on the June ballot, E and F, speak to the eventual resolution of our Main Street Bridge issue. E was placed on the June ballot by your elected City Council. F was placed on the same June ballot by a few individuals. These 2 initiatives have very different visions of the resolution of the Main Street Bridge problems. Measure E is a Main Street Bridge initiative that allows the voters of Half Moon Bay to tell their democratically elected City Council members to continue the process to determine the best, the safest, and the most cost-effective solution to our Main Street Bridge issue. E has long-term vision and speaks to the broader interests of our community. The city has been informed by Caltrans for many years now that our 100-plus-year-old bridge needs serious work. In 2010, probably more than 3 years ago, more like 4 years ago, the city began the process to evaluate the best solution to our bridge problem. The process was never a secret. It was discussed in many open city council sessions and also discussed in many study sessions with our community members. The direction given to the bridge engineers the city hired was to solve the structural issues with the bridge and also correct the various safety and accessibility issues the bridge currently has. Working to solve these issues, the bridge engineers offered the city several solutions to the bridge problems. A key part of this was to find funding for the project to minimize the cost to the Half Moon Bay taxpayers, along with keeping the closure of the bridge and the impact on the merchants to an absolute minimum. When the city council picked their desired solution from the various alternatives presented, the intent of the city was always to preserve the appearance of the bridge as it was when it was built and as you see it today. The difference would not be with the parts of the bridge you cannot see. That's the arch, the underlying failing superstructure underneath the roadway. And let's take a minute here to clearly spell out the differences between a pure preservationist and a bridge engineer. A pure preservationist wants little or no changes in the entire structure of the bridge. They want all parts of the bridge to be preserved. This includes the failing underlying superstructure. And frankly, they don't care so much about the cost of this approach or what the cost will be to the citizens of Half Moon Bay. Their laser focus is preservation. They don't really care about federal funds or grants because they won't have to be the ones responsible for the work or the costs if they get their way. Our community will end up being responsible. It's easy to put an initiative on the ballot. It's quite another thing to deal with the consequences of that initiative. The city is fully prepared to carry out all the future work Measure E will require. I'm not so sure about the people who put Measure F on the ballot. The people, again, who put E on the ballot, your elected city council, are committed to all the work E will entail if it passes. And let's just focus on the name for a second. It's called the Main Street Bridge Safety and Accessibility Act. And it's for good reason. It's the process the city has been working on for over 4 years. The end game is to have a Main Street bridge that is safe for many years to come, that the project will be within the financial ability of our taxpayers to afford, and will provide accessibility for all of our citizens to cross, no matter their physical condition. And keep in mind here, we talk process, we have 6 key factors here. Engineering feasibility, cost or funding, safety, accessibility, Main Street downtime, and environmental considerations. Our city needs to stay on track to continue the normal, appropriate process to determine the best Main Street Bridge project for our community. F will result in a bridge project determined by 3 or 4 individuals. That's not the way to design a bridge. Our voters need to endorse Measure E to keep this a legitimate process moving in the right direction. Thank you.
David Eblovi is going to speak in opposition to Measure E.
Before I start, I'd like to thank Councilman Alifan for being here, sort of walking the lines down, I would figure, so I think that's admirable. What a long, strange journey this has been. Milton Azevedo.
Really? How rude.
What that time?
No, just keep going, sir.
Fair enough. John Lewis. John B. Olson. William Phillips Milton. Another Milton. Giuseppe Besson. In 1917, these 6 men crossed the Main Street Bridge. 3 of them never came back. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I think we've lost sight of what it is we're arguing about. This is not an abstract pile of concrete. This bridge has borne witness to every event in this community for the last 114 years. This bridge carried rescuers in 1906 into and out of Half Moon Bay. It did it again in 1989. When those men crossed the bridge, I bet you anything, whether they were riding, walking, that they turned around and looked back at their community from the only portal into their community at that time. And I bet you anything, they wanted one thing. That was the chance to return to the community and cross that bridge one more time. I was standing on the bridge about 5 months ago with a council member on a beautiful fall afternoon. We had just met and we were talking about the bridge. And you're gonna have to forgive me, but what the council member said to me was, you know, David, you and I both know this bridge is a pile of shit. With respect to the gentleman in question, I don't agree. And I don't know how you can sit on the city council for 4 years and claim to be disinterested when your vision of what you're discussing can be described in such brutally simple and stupid terms. With that said, I now have to argue against Measure E. Was that 2 minutes or 1 minute?
2.
Thank you. Let's start with the basics. Measure E is meaningless. The city council already has the legislative authority and statutory authority to keep doing what they're doing. They don't need a measure to tell them that they can do it. They can do it, that's the whole point. I'm gonna save Measure F for the second session. I'm gonna try to just focus on Measure E here. Measure E is ostensibly because the council wants you to tell them how you feel. Over the course of the last year and a half, as best we can count, 76 individual people have gotten up in front of the city council or study sessions or the consultants that work for the city council. 75 of them were emphatically in favor of preserving the bridge as it currently sits. The one that wasn't against it, they just didn't have an opinion. I was at a meeting with Councilman Alifan, again, long strange journey, sometime in the past month, and he made an interesting comment. He said, I really want to hear from the silent majority. That's a legitimate comment, but what I have to say is, what about the 76 people that have stood in front of you, one after the other, and said the same thing over and over and over again? We don't need Measure E to determine what the people think. Thank you.
The next section of this is the 1 minute rebuttal, right? Okay,
So
and
is
this
that
is
from the cage, or?
And this is for Measure E, the Main Street Safety and Accessibility Act. And so, Alan, would you like to go first?
The rebuttal to the rebuttal.
Okay.
The opposition.
I don't know if you're picking up on the dynamics here, but on one hand, you've got an elected group of officials who are trying very hard to come up with a solution to a problem we've been aware of for well over 4 years. And I think we had major headlines on the Half Moon Bay Review saying, bridge is in serious trouble. And that's what prompted the city council to start the process going. The process is a long way from being completed. We don't know what the final outcome is going to be. There may be a lot of variations, but let me explain something. The current bridge is way too narrow for modern vehicles. If you've been on there and seen an 18-wheeler on the bridge, their left tire goes a foot over the double yellow. It's just not a current modern bridge. And one important thing is, no matter what happens, if we keep the arch on the bottom, the entire bridge on top goes away. And I'll talk more about that later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's shoot that one down first. There's a bridge replacement or bridge repair method known as, oh my God, the brain is going to forget. At any rate, you can basically fill the arch with concrete, leave the arch inside internally intact, put micropiles down the inside of the bridge. You can do it for $1 million or $1.5 million. The bridge stays the same size. Put a sign up that says, no trucks. Why do we need 18-wheel trucks on Main Street?
Yeah, They come down Kelly.
What am I waiting for?
No.
Oh.
30 seconds.
So that's part one. Part two is, does anybody here rationally think I don't want the bridge to be, or the preservationists, not the engineers, that we don't want the bridge to be safe, functional, and repaired? Really? Because this is tiring. We're not advocating that I'm going to design a bridge. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. We've hired engineers to do that for us because the city council won't do it. Wait, 30 seconds remaining?
No, oh wait.
Take it if you can get it.
Okay, now we come to the question and answer period. We haven't done that. Okay. That's definitely, okay. Okay, the first question. David, we'll start with you. Why does the city not have the bridge examined to see if it should be replaced or repaired?
Has anyone read the paper in the past couple days? I'm going to defer to Mr. Alifan with that question. Although I will say at the scoping meeting, the last scoping meeting on March 15th, the consultants working for the city emphatically stated, we are going to, quote, test the bridge. They didn't state what that meant, but they are apparently going to test the bridge. What the point of testing is without an end goal of determining what you're trying to determine is somewhat vague to me. As far as why the city won't do it, I have many thoughts and ideas on that, but I will defer to Alan since he's a part of that organization.
Okay.
Repeat the question again.
Why, sure. Why does the city not have the bridge examined to see if it should be replaced or repaired?
As part of the process, and this is a very long, multi-year process, to take a very large project that's going to have to go through a whole lot of environmental groups and finally end up with a coastal commission. Part of this process will be, as David just said, testing of the arch. If the arch turns out to be savable, rehabilitatable, then we have to find out from the engineers what's going to be able to go on top of there, if anything, to make the bridge safe and accessible. So let me go back again and explain one last thing. Even if we somehow can maintain the arch, we don't know that yet. We're still working on that. The top part of the bridge is going away. The entire section we all see every day will be gone. What will go back on there will be new modern concrete, either on top of an arch or on top of a new superstructure, and that will be the new Main Street bridge. But the old bridge, it'll be gone.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
The first question. What's that?
Second question.
Second question. Sorry.
And who are you addressing it to?
Alan is what it was. Why won't the city do the structural testing that the preservationists requested?
Isn't that sort of the same question?
I'm sorry, that's pretty much the same. Here's a slightly different question. Did the city council put the 2 initiatives on the June ballot instead of the November ballot to avoid potentially unfavorable collateral damage by your city council campaign?
The decision was made to get the initiatives on the June ballot as quickly as possible, rather than wait for November, and put the process in limbo to some degree. We have huge sums of money being spent on environmental reviews right now. The sooner the city knows what path forward we're going to take, and if it turns out to be pure preservation, so be it. That's the direction the city will go. If it turns out to be continue the process, that will be the direction the city will go. Why do you want to wait for November? What do you gain by going to November? Oh, somehow getting in the middle of a city council election? Okay, fine. If the ideas here are to disrupt things, to file complaints, to threaten lawsuits, then I understand. But if it's to get something resolved, that's the direction I want to see it go.
David, why did the city council not do a CEQA analysis? Same question. This is for you, David. Did the city council put the 2 initiatives on the June ballot instead of the November ballot to avoid potentially unfavorable collateral damage by your council campaign?
The short answer is I have no idea why they did it. I can't speak for them. What I can give you is a hypothetical phone conversation from Laura Snyderman, who's no longer here, but the city manager, to Ramsey Hisson, URS. Hi Ramsey, this is Laura. Yeah, we're going to put the project on hold until November after the election, so just tell people to stand down and we'll get back to you. Click. We don't need to have 2 competing ballot measures, one of which is an absolutely gutted and I'll address in the next session. The measure F that actually Councilman Alifan said a few minutes ago that they took the citizens, that we put it on sorry, you can see how angry it is, that we put it on here. That is what he said. So setting that aside for a second, why did they do this? I have my own ideas. And I got those signs were frustrating. At any rate, I can't answer that question, but what I do know is if we wanted to stop the process and let a full measure of the electorate vote on it, we could do it very easily. This would not be hard to do. You pick up the phone and you say, stop. We have a 5-day termination clause in the contract.
And stop, yes. Thank you.
David? Okay, the next question is, why did the city council not do a CEQA analysis before hastily putting the measure on the ballot?
Because they didn't have time, and in the process they violated the law, and that's probably why they're going to get sued. The funny thing about all this is there's a reasonable probability that these ballots are never going to see the light of day. CEQA, there's established case law that went to the California Supreme Court in 2001 that was a fairly identical case, and I can't do it in 30 seconds, but basically, make a long story short, you cannot, as a city council or a legislative body, put a measure on a ballot, measure on a ballot without complying with CEQA first. Obviously, the city had 3 days to pull this off. They didn't have time to comply with CEQA. They didn't comply with CEQA, therefore they have opened themselves up to a vulnerability. If Mr. Alifano has a problem with being sued over that, I have to apologize, but CEQA relies on litigation or the litigation privilege of citizens to enforce it. So, there you go.
Alan, same question. Why did the city council not do a CEQA analysis before hastily putting the measure on the ballot?
Think about this for a minute. If you don't have a specific project that's going on the ballot initiative, what do you CEQA? Unless you say, I'm going to build a 20-story building and it's going to look like this, then yes, you go to CEQA. If you're talking about a process, which way are we going to go? Let the city council continue or do a pure preservation? You don't really have projects on the ballot. You have direction to the council of where to go. So certainly we talked to our city attorney and said, Do we need CEQA? He's talked to several experts, they say no, not if you're not putting a project on the ballot.
Okay, I believe that takes care of Measure E. So now we will go to the next one, which is Measure F. And I want to make sure that okay, Measure F is the Half Moon Bay.
The Main Street Bridge Preservation Act.
Yeah, Half Moon Bay resolution for a measure on the Main Street Preservation Act. And speaking in support of that is Alan Alifano. So Alan, you have the floor.
So I know you're sitting there right now thinking, wait a minute, he just spoke in favor of E. Why is he up here speaking in favor of F? Because it's about the process, folks. We just had some individuals want to put something on a ballot. June, November, doesn't make that much difference. It's about the process. You don't ask the city to put a ballot initiative out there, cost the city roughly $20,000, and then say, oh, some word got changed inside the initiative by an attorney who tried to clarify things. Gee, we want to take our marbles and go home. We're not happy with what's happened. Look, you're either professionals moving forward trying to resolve an infrastructure issue, or you're not. And I'm sorry, and I'm speaking because I want E and F on the ballot. I want our voters to have a choice. That's what this is about. If you only have one initiative, you don't really give people clear differences. And that's what these two initiatives are trying to say to the community. Main Street safety and accessibility, Main Street preservation. And let me go back again and make this really clear. If it turns out that the arch can be maintained, the piece you see, and by the way, has anybody seen the arch recently? Raise your hand. Okay. Carefully here. I can't see it unless I crawl down there.
Turn all over that bridge, we have a problem.
Because it's completely overgrown down in the creek. You can't see the arch anymore. So even if you could keep the arch, we don't know that yet. The piece we all see on top, the piece we either walk or drive across, is gone. The engineers take it off completely. They clean out the arch, they inspect it, they refill it, and they put a brand new concrete platform, waterproof, on top of the arch. Hopefully wider and safer with new sidewalks and accessibility. But do you understand what we're saying here? The bridge, no matter what happens, the top of the bridge goes away. The new bridge will look just like the old bridge, except it's going to be new, but it'll look like it did when it was built 100 years ago. So I'm up here telling you, please stop wasting time and money. Let the voters choose. Stand behind what you put on the ballot. It's not that complicated. Preservation, safety, and accessibility. You've got two clear choices for the voters. Go out there, make your case, and let the voters say what you believe in. But I'm sorry. I spend a lot of time in city council meetings, and LAFCO meetings, and SAM meetings. As a volunteer, this isn't a full-time job. And as a city council member, you know what you're required to do by law? Hire experts. I'm not a bridge engineer. We've hired 3 different sets of bridge engineers. We've held many meetings with the community. We need to keep the process moving. Keep E and keep F on the ballot. Let the voters decide what's the right way to go. And by the way, when they decide, I'm fine with that. That's who I want to give us a message loud and clear.
David?
Excuse me, I'm attached. Let people don't wear pocket watches. sandwiches anymore. Too many papers. Okay. If I heard Councilman Alifan correctly, and this has been a theme that's been rendered by the rest of the council, the Main Street Bridge Preservation Act is the Main Street Bridge Preservation Act. In their ballot argument against F, the City Council's ballot argument against F, this is a quote: "The only difference between Measure F and the initiative being circulated by opponents of the Main Street Bridge project is the highly slanted and divisive findings included in their measure." Oh crap, we must have really been wordy in our measure. Here are the things that they removed from the measure they put on the ballot. Whereas the Main Street Bridge is an irreplaceable public resource of the highest value, clearly divisive. Whereas the Main Street Bridge has been listed on the Half Moon Bay Historical Resource Inventory since 1986. Whereas the California State Historical Resources Commission voted unanimously on February 7th, 2014 to forward the nomination of the Main Street Bridge to the Keeper of the Register of the National Register of Historic Places for inclusion on the National Register. Whereas it is in the interest of the city of Half Moon Bay to preserve the unique character and quality of distinctive architectural, historical, and visual resources of the city. This one's clearly divisive. Whereas the city's circulation element, Action 3-1, requires consideration of special circumstances, such as historical significance, environmental concerns, and/or lack of room, as well as the need to incorporate complete streets to the extent feasible, and to allow for well-designed deviations in updating its engineering and design standards. Every word is missing. And then we get to Section 3. This is the wild child preservationists' purpose and intent. Why did we do this? They omitted it completely. It's really long. The people of the city of Half Moon Bay hereby find and declare the following. A, the Main Street Bridge is an irreplaceable public resource of the highest value. B, it is in the interest of Half Moon Bay to preserve the unique character and quality of distinctive architectural and historical resources of the city's downtown. Okay? This is a joke. It is a mockery. Offering up the Main Street Bridge Preservation Act in lieu of the actual Main Street Bridge Preservation Act that already has almost 1,000 signatures on it, because we elected them to office, is nonsense. Putting it on the ballot measure side by side so that the council can gauge, I believe, gauge the feelings of the people. You don't enact statutory law to gauge the feelings of people. We're talking about making laws, not taking the temperature of the community. Let's face facts. In November, 70 to 80% of our people, of the adults in our community that are registered to vote, are going to vote. In June, maybe half that, maybe a little more. So we're talking about, let's even say 40%. So we're talking about a 20% slice of this community determining the outcome of this vote, right? As opposed to a 35 to 40% slice of the community. This has been made deliberately confusing, and I have nothing but anger and frustration at both measures. So I'm up here arguing against Measure F, and I'm not suggesting for a second what you should do, because it's your job as the voter to figure out what you should do. All I can tell you is look very, very carefully at the motives, the meaning, and the intent behind these measures, behind the rush to get them on the ballot. The special election, or the special meeting to put these on the ballot, was called 5 days after our initiative appeared in City Hall, so that they could squeeze it in under the deadline a week and a half, 2 weeks later. This was not a coincidence. It's a tough decision to make. if we get to June and we're at the polling place, what I can say definitively is both measures should be shot down in flames. But it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt if Measure E passes and Measure F doesn't. With that said, good luck.
1 minute rebuttal, Councilman Alifan.
We're not playing checkers here, we're not playing cards. We're talking about the hard-earned tax dollars of the people in our community. We don't have time to put issues on the June ballot, put them on the November ballot, and keep this thing going on forever. It's costing our city a lot of money with all the delays and all the special elections. It's not that complicated. Accessibility and safety, preservation. If you think a few words are gonna really change people, I've been around long enough, it's not gonna make that much difference. You came into the game with an intent. You put your cards on the table, stay with your cards. Let the voters decide. Don't keep changing the game. Oh, now we're gonna go to November. Stick with what you've done. Stand behind what you've done. The city will.
David?
I'm probably gonna screw this up. 407 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this nation, on this continent, a nation conceived in liberty. Yes, I think a few words can change things. Those aren't just words. They're not my opinion. They're not just stuff. Those are the statute as it would be written to protect the bridge. The reality is the statute as it was drafted by the city attorney guts the measure and leaves it open to challenge. The city attorney's own words said the preservationist measure is legally valid, sustainable, would survive a challenge, and begrudgingly, I actually have to say they did a pretty good job. If we did such an effing good job, then why did they rewrite the whole thing and take out the important parts?
Confiscation.
So now we will have the first question.
First question, I guess is for David, is that right?
Yeah.
How will the restoration, repair, or replacement of the bridge be paid for if the project does not receive a Caltrans bridge rating of 80 or higher? Can this score be achieved if the bridge is repaired without adding ADA compliant sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and adjusting the northern approach to improve visibility?
The two are not connected. The sufficiency rating of 80, and that's another canard, safety rating, it's a sufficiency rating. Long story, very short. The bridge is a historical structure. It is exempted by an organization called AASHTO from FHWA regulations that would require it to get to an 80 to comply for HBRP funds. I have an email, I didn't bring it unfortunately, I will happily forward it, from Sylvia Fung, the Director of Local Assistance, that says verbatim, this is available, funds are available with the AASHTO exemption, all you have to do is apply for them. That's it, all you have to do is apply for them. And do you think this bridge is not going to be eligible? Well, maybe you do, but we can still apply for them. Have we? No. Has the city council and the city been aware of this since December? Yes. I forget the question.
Councilman Alifan?
Sure.
Oh, I should read it. How will the restoration, repair, or replacement of the bridge be paid for if the project does not receive a Caltrans bridge rating of 80 or higher? Can this score be achieved if the bridge is repaired without adding ADA compliant sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and adjusting the northern approach to improve visibility?
There's funds available for major upgrades to infrastructure. You all know, you keep hearing the news, all the bridges in the country. And the funding is out there and it's very clear cut. If you choose not to take that kind of funding and you look for other grants and funding, it's much less.
It's the same program.
Wait.
Excuse me?
My
David?
apologies.
David, thank you.
David.
It's much less certain than the other funding. The city looks at the cost to the taxpayers. We have to keep that in mind at all times. This isn't a game of chance. The city has to know for certain how we're going to fund the bridge. We can't flip a coin or roll dice. So yes, there's a possibility, but we've already been told it might not happen. So that's what the city has to weigh as we move forward.
Councilman Alifan, you're next. Since the actual citizens initiative will be on the November ballot regardless, what happens if E and or F pass and the November initiative also passes? Why bother with E and F?
I didn't create F. Few individuals put the initiative together. The city said, fine, you want an initiative? We'll also have a matching initiative to let the voters choose between two. It's not that complicated. Really? You want to have 4 initiatives, 2 in June and 2 in November? I'm sorry. I don't see the logic in this. Let's move forward. The bridge is this big, okay? We've all said when we're done, the bridge will look the way it did 100 years ago. But it'll be upgraded and safe and will give accessibility to the people that have a hard time crossing the bridge right now. It's not that complicated. We need to let the voters decide and move on.
David, the question is...
I got it. Thank you. Election Code 92, Election Code Section 9214 and 9216 stipulate how a city council may take a ballot measure and put it on a ballot, superseding the necessity or the need for the citizens to continue doing it. You need to have 15% of the votes or minimum, and in both cases, it must be word for word identical. They are not allowed to change it. For Councilman Alifan to stand up here and say that he took my work and put it on the ballot, and it's legal, and that's the way it is ridiculous. The bridge will be exactly the same. It'll look exactly the same, except it'll be 30 feet wider. The funding, and again, we keep coming back to this funding canard, and I'm not going to get this thought in before the time clicks, but yeah, there was a thought there. All right, well, it's been a long night. Thank you. Oh, am I?
Last question, David. How can the city say that they want public input at its best, yet put June over November?
Well, you can.
Okay.
You can. You know, I can't speak, I have opinions, they're not empirical data. I can't speak for why the city council or the city has acted the way they have. All I can say is, nope, I'm not an engineer. And you heard preservationists. Preservationists aren't engineers. Preservationists aren't experts. I think the word experts and engineers came out about 50 times. No one's suggesting from the quote preservationist side that I go out and design this bridge and then try to figure out how to pay for it. All we're saying is the bridge is savable as is, can be returned to entirely structural, the structural integrity can be resolved completely without actually changing it, and we're good. And I'm done. I think. Was that the third question?
No, that's the third. How can the city say that they want public input at its best, yet put June over November?
Remember what I told you earlier? How many years has this been going on? Over 4 years. And I'm sorry, but some of the people that are now involved are very late to the game. These have been public city council meetings, headlines in the review, and I don't know how many study sessions with people from the city, from our community. The process is going to continue to go through the environmental reviews, and we're going to continue to get citizen input. And I'm sorry, the bridge ain't going to be 100 feet wide. The bridge may be a little wider than it is now to make it safe. The new sidewalks will be safe sidewalks that people can access in wheelchairs and with crutches and so forth, which they can't do now. I'm sorry, I'll come back to the same point again. We don't need to keep going on and on. Let's let E and F hit the ballot and let's decide. Thank you.
Okay, that we've gotten past the measures section of this, and now we're coming to the voting section. But before we do that, Rick, if you would take a few moments.
Just very quickly, I'd like to thank, first of all, the candidates and all the pros, the cons people who came out, and I'd like to thank all of you folks for coming out tonight and spending a good chunk of your Saturday night, even though we're significantly ahead of schedule.
Friday night.
Friday night. I'm sick, so I can't get there. Just a quick reminder on the voting. If you're pro a measure or a person, vote yes. If you do not want that person or measure endorsed, vote no. If you are undecided or don't care, or you want someone else to be more significantly voting because it's not your issue, then vote no vote. If you vote nothing, it'll be a no vote. And then we're going to quickly total up all the yeses and nos and do it for cents, and we'll get all the answers back to you folks as fast as we can. Meanwhile, you can have some more cookies and coffee. Go ahead and fill out your ballots.
Does everyone have a ballot who's a member of the college of his or her group?
Let's be informal. I'm sorry.
There is actually one other one, quickly, Jeffrey Hayden. Jeffrey, that we don't have you scheduled to speak, but if you'd like to say just a couple words.
The wrong one.
Okay. Excuse me? Okay, running for the Superior Court is Jeffrey Hayden. And he'd like to just say a few words to you real quickly.
I would like to thank you for having me here tonight for a couple of minutes. My name is Jeff Hayden. I am running for Superior Court Judge in office number 4. And I'm a lifelong resident of San Mateo County. I've gone to top-notch law school, went on to clerk in the district court. I have experience that greatly exceeds anybody else running in the race. I'm running against a court commissioner. I don't mean to speak ill of her, but we do have very different experiences in the race. I come with 20 years of heavy lifting, very, very serious cases, progressively so over the last 20 years. I would like to see some changes in the courts. The court in this county has some problems, and they're not aware that they need active help, and I do believe they need help. And just like you would with anybody else who doesn't know that they need help, I've launched this candidacy in the way of an intervention. I think they need help to get to hear from you all. You can't get your cases into court. If you have neighbors where you need a restraining order, you're not going to be able to get in as quickly as you want. If you have children that need to be helped or to be removed from the system, you're going to have a difficult time getting through. It's been given a low priority in the court. We devote less time to many critical areas, whether it's family law or juvenile court, than anyone else in the state. We really need to give some new ideas a chance and bring some additional new folks in. I hope to lead that trend. I am presently involved in several boards, the largest group of lawyers in the state of California outside of the state bar, in addition to the state bar itself. I'm on the board of that group. I'm on the Criminal Law Advisory Commission. Actually, I finished my chairmanship with the Criminal Law Advisory Commission of the State Bar, and I've moved on to the Board of Legal Specialization. And I'm Vice President of the County Bar. I bring with me a lot of ideas, not just my own, not just born of my own experiences and trainings, but those of many, many lawyers that I work with. I would like to bring them to the benefit of the court to better serve the community. There are ways that they can be adjusting the calendar and bringing you all to where you have a chance to be heard. That's what it's all about, is a meaningful chance to be heard, to air what you need to have aired, to work to the benefit of the community. And I would very much like the chance to serve you. I would very much appreciate your vote, as I appreciate your time tonight.
Can we hear your name again?
Again, my name is Jeff Hayden. There are some cards on the back table, and I have a few more with me. If you'd like to look at my website and learn a little more about me. I don't know if you have time set aside for questions. I'm more than happy to.
Okay, sure.
Why are judges elected when like the Supreme Court's appointed?
Most judges in the state are appointed. It's a political process. Instead of airing my ideas to you, I would be airing it to elected officials and primarily the governor. It's a very mysterious process. When there's an opening that the governor has not filled by the time it comes up for election, then it gets elected. You get to choose between the people that are running. And it's a 6-year term. When it comes up again, usually nobody runs against them. So this is a rare opportunity. Our last judicial election was 6 years ago. We had another 2 years before that. This rare chance, you have 2 seats up. This has not happened as long as I've been here. I've been living in the county for 46 of my 55 years.
My understanding is that like half of the San Mateo County jail population is there for victimless crimes. So wouldn't the solution be get them through the system and as fast as possible, not clog up the courts and not clog up the jails with people for victimless crimes?
Well, first, I think your estimate may be a little low. It may be actually a higher number than that. I tend to agree with you. The judges that are there now tend to come from the same sector of society, the same DA's office. They have a very different view than most of the constituents. And the fact is, the way the system is structured, once you get into the court, you don't tend to be out in community meetings like this. You don't tend to hear from the constituents. You're cut off. And that's one of the things that represents what people in this county voted on the rest of the state, for Prop 36, for example. We've heard this time and time again from the voters, but people that have been cut off, that includes judges and commissioners alike, tend not to hear so much because they're not out in the community. With that in mind, 2 of the people running in the race are court commissioners that have been in office for 10 and 14 years respectively. Now that they've been sufficiently sequestered, many of the judges feel, okay, now we can make them one of us. The fact is, that means that after the end of the 20-year stint that most judges serve, you will have had people sitting on the bench that haven't listened to a community group such as this in close to 35 years. 2 of the people running have a very different experience. One is a city councilman up in Daly City. I myself have not run for office before. This is my first time out. But I've been very active in the community. I do a lot of volunteer work in a lot of different arenas. I've been listening to folks like yourself. I'm not going to bottle myself up for 15 years before I decide I'm ready to sequester myself for 20.
Just to be clear, there are 2 different judge races on the ballot. You're running in Office 4. There's an additional race for Office 6. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're a Democrat?
I am.
Are other Democrats running in your race?
In my race, I am a Democrat, my opponent's a Republican. In Office 6, both people running are Democrats. There's a big difference between the 2 of them. There's a big difference between the 2 of us in our race. I would urge you to vote for the first person listed in both races, knowing what order they're listing us in. But I won't really take issue with who's in the other race. I'll leave that to your sound discretion. I would urge you to vote within the party, to vote Democratic, and to vote me in the race for office. Thank you.
Ready to go?
The best part is when they announce the votes, that's when the fist fights started. Yeah, it's cool. Right? Remember the last time?
What?
The fist fights that started after they announced the votes.
I was...
You sold this on paper. Well, I can't start packing this up. This is costing more than
Many of them are in jail.
All three candidates were endorsed. Jackie originally bond. MROSD bond measure was endorsed. The school parcel tax was endorsed. GSD to a CSD was endorsed. And the two bridge measures both failed. Numbers, if you want to see it.
You look like you need a haircut.
And then you will come out with
They never have. Maybe
You don't like this? Don't say that in public meeting.